In this video I'll either attempt to tackle way too much or not, but at the risk of chewing off more than you can bite, here goes. A light-hearted interlude first from similar circles where a stance with much more integrity to conversation was taken. Now, without convoluting even more with the fact there can be something said on the topic that words have usages, not meanings, there was a fellow who made the following statement. I'm not a sentient being, I'm just a regular person. Now, just as in the next example, people air quote called him out on that, air quote, but also added if perchance transcendent or omnipotent, omniscient was meant. In this case, the person did some checking and aside being glad people tried to help with his arguing, was happy to make the following statement. Yeah, at the time I was under the impression that sentient was the word that meant what I was trying to say, but I was mistaken. So next time will be better, I guess. Now I'll fully admit, end quote. Now I'll fully admit that I can, both on accident or not always put forth the best argument. But I realized watching a lot of Hangouts recently that there are individuals that I feel can benefit of knowing more about argumentation before, air quote, challenging people to debates, air quotes. Since I want to address a dozen or two topics in one video, I'll continue stating the second example. Rainbows are like green fluffy perfumed clouds on a Friday. Well, it's not the exact example from one of the two gentlemen we may return to later, but assuredly also in this case people tried to help what the arguing was about. But this is the point I first need to take it back to the difference between air quote debate and debate. The difference between arguing and arguments, the difference between sophistry, rhetoric, and formal fee, informal logic. And I'll fully admit not having been in an air quote debate air quote yet, and I realized the difference between verbal and written, but in the end of it, debates will involve arguments, argumentation, and preferably not arguing. I do prefer figuring topics out in the comments or discussions more as verbal, but here we can already spot another few topics to divert from instead of argumentation, debating, and the 2 or 3 odd correction I'd like to convey along the way. Initially I thought of about 10, but it's already lengthy. So some may see the air quote debates, air quotes, as a verbal wrestling match, but another intriguing analogy may be simultaneous chess. An immediate problem with it, however, should be apparent that, well, the board isn't visible, but another non-trivial observation is that with simultaneous chess, everyone actually has their own board and starts from scratch. As in that when John plays against Jack, the board isn't the same as between Jack and Shirley, and Jack can learn the lessons drawn from playing with Shirley, but I think everyone can agree that it's not therefore the black queen is currently on square f3 whilst Jack is playing with John because of the current or recent game with Shirley. The starting from scratch, by the way, used to take 3 days 20 eons ago, so one can imagine that with much more diversified knowledge today it may be impractical. I managed recently a small victory in this regard in some community when I preemptively opened a topic that described among other my awareness of propositional logic up to what one could consider to be my epistemology. Someone other as the two fine gentlemen who I won't divulge on yet, but will say has been drawn by SyeTenAtheist, that otherwise happily would have let me pick between a false trichotomy or else ban me, mysteriously backed off when I invited him to it. In other words, to the pristine board where it was preemptively established neither could perform pigeon chess. In the last week or so, a proper example of pigeon chess could be seen. Instead of, to stick to the analogy, asking if both were going to follow the same rules and figure out if there was just one board or more, and who was playing which side and which of those boards, and etc., 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 the other gentleman who hasn't been drawn attempted to cut straight through to setting up pieces, when he finally had the opportunity to engage verbally with another who has been drawn by SyeTenAtheist. And to stick to the analogy of Jack and Shirley, instead of putting the black queen on f3, seemingly put a football on f3. What really happened, among other, was that a term got used which made perfect sense in someone's head, but upon inspection literally didn't exist on Google until recently. And it took many people already many hours to explain that because that term literally doesn't exist, and therefore nullified his argument, it doesn't mean anyone is saying some article can't be talking about complex information. That's regardless to say whether that's valid, or whatever deviation that he was not pronouncing. All it was to say that a specific term with exactly those words in that order that he used 24 times during a conversation was not used anywhere outside his head. Other intriguing things happened during the conversation of the two gentlemen, of which one isn't drawn and another one that is drawn by Sye that occurred previous weekend. An offer was made to teach or school if he really was interested, but presumably to establish while teaching whatever sticks and whatever needs to be expounded on more, it was requested that in that case, the case being that a schooling would occur, questions asked would be answered honestly. Somehow this was misinterpreted as an invitation to have a debate, because in exchange for the schooling, a counter-challenge was made to debate on the Bible. And unpacking that, yes, it seems that because he started talking about debates, he misunderstood the extended invitation of teaching to an invitation for a debate. Now, of course, it's an air quote debate, air quote, that's meant with that, but be that as it may, a quick note on debates is that there does exist a variety where actually points are awarded and deducted for various nonsense, and the actual statements become the goal, and basically browbeating isn't going to work. Personally, I find it funny how our interlocutors seem to vanish from a pristine board where there is no chance of pigeon chess on either side, while also happily insinuating that those they challenge to a Durbate are cowards, but well, at least it gives me reasons to facepalm. I'm pretty sure that's fallacious, but can you tell me which it is? Leave a comment below with what you think comes close. Thanks for watching. See you next time.